Penguin Random House Audio presents Will There Ever Be Another You? A novel. This is the author, Patricia Lockwood. One of us, i.e. a human being, should be imagined as having been created in a single stroke, created perfect and complete, but with his vision obscured so that he cannot perceive external entities, created falling through air or a void, in such a manner that he is not struck by the firmness of the air in any way that compels him to feel it, and with his limbs separated so that they do not come in contact with or touch each other. Then contemplate the following. Can he be assured of the existence of himself? Ibn Sina. Part 1. Fairy Pools. As soon as she touched down in Scotland, she believed in fairies. No, as soon as the rock and velvet of Inverness rushed up to her where she was falling, a long way through the hagstone hole of a cloud, and she plunged down into the center of the cloud and stayed there. You used to set a child out for them, she thought, and was caught in the arms, and awoke on the green hillside. "Scotland," she heard her mother say, in a voice weak from lack of iced tea. They were barely alive after 5 hours on the runway in Chicago and another 10 in the air. It's not the first real day, her husband kept reminding them. After a short stay in Inverness that night, they would go on to Skye tomorrow. He jangled a set of keys. In Ireland, 2 years before, it had transpired that her husband, a contrarian, was born to drive on the wrong side of the road, while her mother, a worse contrarian, and whom she had defeated by marrying the former, planned to drag them all to hell that way. "So I'll drive," he told her mother now very loudly, "and you sit on the passenger side and slam your foot to the floor whenever I get too close to a low stone wall." "Deal," her mother agreed. She would also provide commentary and throw in those sharp little gasps for free. She herself was silent and let herself be carried, on and on toward the green hillside. The trees corresponded to an obsessive high school reading of the White Goddess. The sheep were spray-painted according to who owned them. Actual lambs frisked in the fields, on legs like little girls. Wait, she thought, am I confused about changelings? You put them out. Did you get anything back? Or they were taken from you in the night, and you woke up one morning? Her sister sat apart from her in the rental car. Her head was full of the child, lost to the mall just that January. From time to time you saw her flicking through pictures on her phone with a chipped hot pink manicure, so quickly that she appeared to be alive, as if she were smoothing a forehead, or touching away an eyelash, or wiping milk from a mouth. And once again the whole life was in motion. "Wide load," she heard her mother saying to the asses of the sheep, as if they were women. Upon her arrival, instead of taking pictures of the North Sea, she had taken pictures of elk bellowing on the walls and a little guy who appeared to be penetrating his bagpipes. This was her typical routine in other countries, to first take pictures of their pictures. It was how you entered into the spirit, and by eating the complimentary oat cakes that had been left in your room, with its conscious and unconscious plaids. Light, shadow, her hand crossed over her sister's, and that life called through the window. Which called them out. She picked up a stone from the shore of the North Sea, with a ring of mica around the top like the city flashing on the water, and they piled into the car to go looking for it, wrapped in a series of preposterous scarves. When she thought of changelings, hadn't it been mostly of the way they were wrapped, in rough gray cloth, with a triangle of face shining through? Between the time her mother had gone into her hotel room and the time she reappeared in the hall, her jeans had become wet. They would not dry for the rest of the trip. The wetness came to represent, in the rest of their minds, the iced tea she could never get. "Tea? With ice?" she would ask hopefully, making a series of gestures to communicate the concept of iced tea, and be brought a cup with 3 cubes in it by someone who looked almost medically concerned. "Tea? With ice?" she asked at the restaurant, holding up her hands like shocked daisies next to her eyes. They had gone to 3 or 4 places before finding one that was open. The chef, in a white hat, laughed and entered her conspiracy. The night flowed like just-struck oil outside the windows. She tried to fix the details of it in her mind. She never remembered the first night in another country, something to do with the change in altitude, or as if she really had touched down in another world. The restaurant, she would not remember later, was actually called Cool Runnings. Back at the hotel bar, the bartender told them the lamentable story of Iron Brew. It had once been sweeter, now it was less sweet. There were petitions and people hoarding it by the case in their flats. She ordered one from him to make friends, for short of that she saw no other way of doing it. Scottish bartenders had been given the opposite instructions to American ones. The taste, a pink electrocution of the tongue, was indescribable, and there was a version that was more so. She decided that if she were presented with a petition, she would sign it, and also support Scottish independence, if that were correct. Maybe now that they were friends, she could ask the bartender. But, "Tea? With ice?" her mother asked him, and the chance was gone again. And so that was Loch Ness? She followed her sister through the ruins of the castle that overlooked it, taking pictures of her in empty windows. Her gold hair whipped, her pink lipstick drawn far beyond the outline of her mouth, smiled without her. People had really lived here. Could you still surprise someone's breathing near the ceiling, as you could upstairs in her sister's house? How long did that last? Her husband rubbed his hands. Finally, a country where the women were wearing enough cloth, and where the wind persisted in exposing the tips of their ears. He had turned a pure itinerary. His mind was full of mileage, national parks, famed distilleries, tallest peaks. At this point, he believed he was Scottish. Everywhere they went, they saw bald heads that looked like his. "One of me," he would cry, pointing them out. A country full of thousands, and she had reached out and taken one. She fondled the mica stone. Maybe the soul was just that dearness nestled in the center of the body, like a chosen pebble in the palm of a hand. When you held someone, it was that dearness you felt, that chosenness. And he was dear. He would sniff the air and stop the car and say, "Macbeth lived here." He knew where there was Red Bull and where there might be ice, 3 cubes of it for her mother. In the car they played a game of Would You Rather, except they misremembered it as I would never. This limited things somewhat. Her husband won easily. "I would never do that," he kept shouting, and then put down another point for himself. He had done all this to rinse her sister's mind of pain. Pain was one of the things he could not stand, along with Muppets. I can feel them getting dirty. And receipts, which were endocrine disruptors. "No, thank you," he said to the man in the gas station, purchasing 4 cans of the less sweet Iron Brew. "Keep moving," he said to them in his long striding body. "One foot in front of the other, or die." She did what she always did in a car. Looked out the window, trusted, and let herself be carried along. The easiest life to imagine was the life of the postman. The easiest life to imagine was the life of the man who ran the ferry. The easiest life to imagine was that of a child, in the castle that sat on the shore of Loch Ness, where the water was full, it was true, of little slipping necks. You could just grab on. They took turns reading to each other from Wikipedia. About fighting hares, the symbology of thistles, which time of year the heather bloomed. The list of historical guys who actually believed in fairies was pretty long, she told them on the way to Glenbrittle. Her husband would have to update her entry to say that she had joined it. "Did you ever see a fairy's funeral, madam?" said Blake to a lady who happened to sit next to him. Never, sir, said the lady.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?